All right, what's up? So, today I've got some coffee, so apologies for the weird sipping noises, and also apologies for the electric saw sounds in the back. There's some work being done on the house. So, right now, I want to read an article that I'm very excited about. Let me set a timer. Yeah, I'm very excited about this. As far as I know, it's the first article on this topic. I haven't looked very hard or very recently for such things, but in the past, I haven't seen anything else like it. So trying to think if there's anything else to say before just diving in. Maybe just that this is not supposed to be like a critique. There's no rules for what this is. There's no rules. I just want to read it and kind of take notes on it out loud. Comment on it. Let it inspire me into having my own thoughts. Whatever. We'll see. So I think unlike some of the other stuff I read, this is a bit on the shorter side. So I think I might be able to get through it in one article. I'm more interested in this case in the ideas, or in the idea first and foremost, than focusing on the writing. Not that that's not worth focusing on, but in this case, this idea is very much something that I'm involved with and think about a lot and am developing my own ideas around. So this is kind of like having a conversation about this stuff. Non-coercive marketing, an origin story. How learning to trust myself turned my marketing worldview upside down. Awesome. So here we go. Let me zoom in. Here we go. Interesting. Starting with food. Well, that gets me curious. For sure. I can take guesses at how this would work, but if I were a totally brand new reader, I would be, yeah, that's a very awesome hook. How the hell did your relationship with food have any impact on marketing? It is not obviously connected. Let's find out. Yep, same. Same. The real question is, who went harder? Because I went pretty damn hard. I was just thinking this in a joking way, but honestly, it's not really funny. Like, I'm fucking lucky that my jug of choice was food, because if it was something else, I would be, I don't know. I could have really hurt myself, done damage to myself in some way, if it was something like alcohol or drugs. Yeah. I've been through the ringer with different kinds of attempts to fix this as well. Or, yeah, fix, in quotes. I mean, I started intermittent fasting when I was 18, and within less than a year, that had transformed into eating only one meal a day, and that lasted until I was maybe 26. So almost 8 years of that. Obviously, it didn't hold fast to that all the time, but the majority of the time it was just one meal a day. And for me, I didn't have the ability or the distance to call it a sort of eating disorder at the time. I just thought that, or I liked to explain it to myself as me being disciplined and just having impulsive eating tendencies. But I mean, yeah, that restrictive behavior made it impossible for me to eat even a little food. So I was like really scared of eating. If I ate anything earlier in the day, it would just set my whole appetite. It would come alive and kind of overtake me, and I couldn't think about anything else but food for the whole rest of the day, and I would just eat until I felt sick. So I very much relate to this. And yeah, all of the berating of myself that I did, and how much that led me to hide from people because I felt gross, or all of the lack of connection that came from that because I wouldn't and basically couldn't eat with people. I couldn't enjoy meals with people because my eating habits had transformed into, eating being this sort of like a binge fest. I didn't want other people to see it. I didn't want other people to know that that's what happened, I really tried to control myself around other people to make it look like I had everything under control, but in the privacy of my own apartment, it was a very different story. Anyway. Okay, so here's a big idea. The belief that you needed an external intervention because you yourself couldn't take care of you. Alright, interested to see how this idea will play out and move into marketing. I don't know if I ever thought about it this way for myself, but certainly many people I've worked with have a particular preference or leaning or approach to psychology, behavioral psychology, where it's all about just kind of like treating yourself like a pinball and designing your environment in order to control your behavior. And it can work for sure, but it's not the only thing that works. But it kind of assumes that you yourself can't change. You have these tendencies, you have these impulses to do whatever thing, go after food, not control yourself around food. And so the only thing you can do is control the external. Don't bring food into your own house. Don't do this, don't do that. Make sure not to expose yourself to food, or in my case, like, don't eat all day. Don't tempt yourself all day, or else you'll have a relapse. I don't know if I've ever called it that, but that's basically what it was, I guess. It's hard because it's food. It seems innocent, but relapse, when talking about any other substance, would be a perfectly fine word. It just feels weird in my mouth. Okay. Story's broken up into parts. So part 2. Man, that's freaking hardcore. Seems like a good way to hurt yourself. Not that I don't see the appeal as well, but man, just like, seems like running yourself into the ground is kind of like the entire point. Maybe it's just because of where I'm at with this now, that at this point, hearing about this idea, doing that, it seems so inevitable to me that regardless of who you are, like, that's gonna like, how could that not lead to, even if you don't have problems with food, like, doing this for 75 days straight, you're gonna develop some fucking problems with food, because you're gonna need so much of it. Man, I wonder what the success stories of this are like. Who's that guy? This dude. No, that's not him. Sorry. There's a popular, like, self-help, or more like self-beating yourself up speaker who was like a former Marine or something like that. And he used to be fat, and then he got disciplined, and it was just all about the hustle and the grind set. I was like, that guy maybe could succeed with the 75-day thing, but maybe only him. Oh, damn. You were considering restarting it? Yeah. I have been asked questions of this sort recently, to which my response was, fuck you. Mm-hmm. You know, as soon as I read this, it sounded like what I've heard in general from people who talk about, like, oh, people who don't trust, like, or believe in feeling one's emotions or thinking about them, you know, p- people who call that, like, wallowing. I've heard from them, this idea that, like, them and others, that, like, if you do it a little bit, the fear is that it's just gonna overtake you. If you let go of control, if you let yourself feel the emotions, like, where's it ever gonna end? Did he use this term? Non-coercion? Okay, part 3. By the way, I'm really liking the reading, or not, I'm really enjoying the writing of this, especially considering that I know more or less how long it took to write this. I mean, maybe there was a long, like, gestation period up to when it officially started, but it's good stuff. That is a radical idea. Especially when you then follow it with this. Because when you think about a lot of views of human nature, it's a lot of them, certain big ones, very much do not take that as a premise at all. Mm-hmm. That's kind of what I was getting at. Interestingly, I used to be really into Buddhism and Taoism. like, in particular, I had a period where I was especially interested in Taoism, probably like 5 years ago. And then I just generally grew up around Buddhism, and it was just very present all around me growing up, even though I wasn't and my family wasn't Buddhist, but it was just everywhere. So, yeah, and like Siddhartha, for example, I've read half a dozen times and is one of those books that has really shaped my life, I would say. But yeah, I don't know. In the last couple of years, I feel as if I've drifted away from it and become less interested in it. And I don't know. I haven't thought too much about why. But now I'm inspired to think about why. Intuitive eating. That sounds familiar. Actually, the book changed my life. Was the pivotal point in my relationship with food. It's really like before intuitive eating and after intuitive eating. It's like day and night. Oh shit. 8 minutes left. I would love to finish this. Oh man, I'm only halfway. Yeah. This is, I would say, true as well. Because there was a lot of build-up and like context building that happened before I came upon intuitive eating. I had been doing other things like improv and acting and things that directly confronted me with my long history of trying to control all of my behavior and be deliberate in everything as opposed to spontaneous. And so even beginning to do yoga and dancing and all these things that got me back into my body after many years of being sedentary. All those things kind of created this context in which I was so much more in tune with my body and predisposed to respect it more than try to keep it on a leash or sort of dominate it with my intellect. I mean, that's a whole nother rabbit hole. Like, I wrote my fucking college thesis on this idea of like, well, actually, my college thesis was inspired by the fucked up relationship to food that was described in the beginning of this article. How is it possible that I can intellectually know what's right to do and then constantly not do that? I was so perplexed by it. So, that's been a big question for me for a long time. Anyway, part 4. Twisting the knife. The funny thing is that it seems like such a horrific thing to do to anybody, and yet it's like a trick of the trade in copywriting. It's like, oh, you did that really well, like, do it more. Twist the knife more so the reader feels even more pain. Copywriting is weird, man. Yep. Really, idea aside, I really love this paragraph. It just has really good flow. I love that. Twist it and twist it good. Oh, right, duh. This is extremely coercive, obviously. Because you've not only stabbed them, you are now twisting the knife. I mean, that's like the hilarious thing is that this whole idea assumes that you've already stabbed them with a knife. It just kind of skips over that, doesn't really dwell on that idea. What I've been wanting to do lately is like, well, because I did a video beginning to just think about what I mean by non-coercion in general, and like going through my own tweets and breaking down what I've been trying to get at. And it makes me want to go to not a dictionary, but like specifically there's a Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy page on coercion. I know because I've saved it to my Evernote. And it's very long and very in-depth. And I've been wanting to read it and just see how this concept has been defined by others. And see how well my own understanding of coercion, and certainly how well I and all the people who have been talking about non-coercion does that definition that we're kind of working with, does it map onto how coercion is defined elsewhere? Because maybe it doesn't. Maybe it does. If it doesn't, that doesn't mean that we don't have to, or that we should stop using the word, but it's worth knowing. And maybe we can find a better word. It's a funny word to use in this context. I'm just imagining, it's like, you stab someone, you're like, ew, I don't like this is gross. Ew, blood. Yeah. I said it in a currently unpublished episode of the Parasocial podcast, where I spent a lot of time wondering how to use everything that I knew about copywriting on myself in order to try to convince myself to do the various things that I wanted, but clearly did not entirely want to do. Yeah. And I think in that episode, I was saying that it was largely that experience of trying to turn all the tools of copywriting onto myself as like a way of persuading myself to do things and motivating myself, when I started to see the cracks in it and be like, this doesn't work very well, and I just don't want to treat myself like this. Like, what does it mean? What do I have to assume about myself, and how do I have to relate to myself in order to use these ideas on myself? It felt gross, to put it simply, as you summed it up so well. Golden rule. All right, I'm not going to look at what that is right now. I've heard so many marketers say about people in general, and even about their own customers and readers, that they're idiots. So, yeah, that's just, I don't know. I'm not gonna go as far as to claim that the people who say that have a shitty relationship to themselves. They very well may have a shitty relationship to themselves, but they certainly have a shitty relationship to their customers, and they don't respect them a whole lot. It's kind of like how you hear about new parents finding themselves saying things that they heard their parents say to them all through their own childhood, and being totally surprised by it. Like, holy shit, I'm my dad now? You know? And the same thing can happen with norms in an industry, like in marketing. We see and we hear the people that we learn from and respect treating other people in a certain way, and we think that that's how it's done, and then we go on and do it to others. And then, I mean, not just that though, obviously, like, the ways that we learned to communicate from our parents can spill out, and do spill out, in marketing. So, yeah, I mean, what I love to say is that marketing is just talking to people. And all of the things that shape how you talk to people are also going to shape how you market. All right. Yeah. What if we took coercion off the table? Talk about a leap of faith. The thing is, trust isn't necessarily something that you can just flip the switch on. So you can't merely decide to begin trusting someone, because trust goes deeper than just intellect and logic, right? So you're not disputing that, but in the same way that shifting your relationship to yourself takes more than just deciding to do so, shifting your relationship to other people and trusting them, which involves developing the ability to feel safe and secure in general, in the world, among people. You can't necessarily just push a button and make that happen. So again, you're not saying that we can, but yeah, I mean, the question is an amazing starting point to begin imagining it. What if? I love what if questions. Dio, Renaissance. Copy. Yep. Yeah. I mean, I would say that distrust and cynicism and zero-sum thinking, or sort of like dog eat dog, every man for himself sort of outlooks definitely don't cycle into their opposite. It just kind of furthers itself. Humanity has a fuck ton of potential. I believe that. Yeah. And, as you point out in the very beginning, it starts with learning to trust yourself. Yeah, I mean, if you don't have any idea that you could trust yourself, if you don't believe that you could trust yourself, why would you ever imagine that others could be? I mean, maybe, no, I'll take that back. I can definitely see and think of even examples in my own life, feeling so self-critical that you feel as if you're utterly untrustworthy and defective in so many ways, and that everyone else is better than you. So that idea of being able to trust others but not yourself, definitely reasonable. But hard still. This is the last paragraph now. Nice. That's fun. Extend an invitation. You don't often see calls to action, CTAs, using the word invitation. Yeah. Invitation in a sort of respectful way. Yeah, I rarely see that. Or I rarely have seen that. It's always like, do this. Go here now. Watch this now. Apply now. Buy now. Right? Like, invitations can be declined. But when someone just tells you what to do, to say no to that isn't to decline it, it's to refuse it, right? Yeah. There's just a total different relationship between you and the person you're interacting with if you invite them to do something versus tell them to do something. Like, it seems small, and someone could write it off to semantics, be like, it's just one word, but it makes a huge difference, actually. Cool. Well, I gotta wrap this up. This was fun. Maybe I'll do a part 2, sort of spending more time on this or kind of riffing off of it more. We'll see.